Good evening, everyone. I call to order the Monday, April 13th, 2020 meeting of Victoria City Council at 6:30. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, a little bit of an echo makes it a little tough. Thank you, everyone. First, we're going to have some announcements, but before I get into those announcements, Dana, you want to let the public know and people on the phone know some of the housekeeping for how we're going to do this?
I'd be happy to do that. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and everyone watching us this evening. Welcome and thanks for tuning in tonight. We value our residents and our community members, and even though our doors are temporarily closed to protect you all, we want to make sure that anyone who wants to participate in our meeting and provide input can do so. State statutes allow the city to conduct meetings by telephone, and the council recently took action to allow our city council and all of our commission and committee meetings to temporarily take place remotely during this pandemic emergency. If you are watching us live online, or on MediaCom Channel 8, and you would like to provide input in the meeting, we are having a public hearing this evening. Please call, and we're going to put the number up, I think right now, on our screen, 1-408-418-9388 now, and then enter meeting ID number 298-387-903. And a change that was just made through WebEx requires a password, and that password is also showing on the screen tonight. You will need that to become it as well. That password is 277-13202. For anyone that's joining us by phone, please be aware of these important notes and instructions. Advanced registration to speak during the public hearings is strongly encouraged. Those who have registered in advance will be called upon first, followed by anyone else who has dialed in during the meeting. And we do have Alyssa Swanson with us, one of our staff members, monitoring. She's serving as our host or our moderator this evening, watching for any call-in people, and Mayor will let you know if somebody calls in that is not registered. We are recording and broadcasting this meeting live. You will also need to watch the meeting online or on cable if you'd like to see any visuals presented during the meeting. There is up to a 1-minute delay from the live conference call to the online and cable broadcast, meaning the call will always be up to 1 minute ahead of what you're seeing on your screen. Please mute any external devices like your television, any music or computer speakers to avoid distractions when addressing council. All participants calling into the meeting will be muted until you are recognized by the mayor to speak. You will be prompted by the mayor at that time, and Alyssa will help with temporarily unmuting the lines when you're recognized. We ask that anyone wishing to address the council ask to be recognized. Be respectful, wait your turn to speak, and do not speak over one another. It is important that all council members and members of the public be able to hear each other and the discussion. So please speak loudly, speak clearly, and speak directly into your phone or microphone. Please listen carefully to the mayor's cues. Callers wishing to be recognized must speak up to get into the queue when prompted, and callers will still need to provide their names and addresses for the record. Finally, different from our usual process, all actions of the council will be taken by roll call vote. This is a new process for us all. We thank you for your patience and your constructive feedback as we work through this unprecedented situation. We are working hard to ensure your voice is heard while maintaining everyone's health and safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Before I get into the other announcements, I'd like to thank the staff. They're putting in a ton of effort across the city and the staff here at City Hall and trying to get these meetings organized and get all of the technology lined up. So thank you to each and every one of you for helping smooth this out as much as we can under the circumstances. Other announcements, there will be a council workshop on Monday, April 27th at 5:30 to discuss the results of the city's small area plan study at Victoria Works. There's a council workshop also scheduled for Monday, May 11th at 5:30. These are PM, by the way, to discuss the city's space needs assessment. And then on Tuesday, May 26th, another council workshop at 5:30 is scheduled to review information related to the city's water and sewer utility rate study. A lot of workshops coming up. In other announcements, the city facilities, including the Victoria Rec Center and City Hall, remain closed to the public at this time to comply with Governor Walz's stay-at-home executive order. The closure is to protect our residents and our staff from the spread of the coronavirus. Our staff is still working very hard to serve you. Please feel free to contact us online or over the phone. At this time, the city is still planning to have a spring composting event. We are hopeful this 2-weekend event will be able to take place in late May. Watch for more details in the coming weeks. With that, Dana, any other announcements last minute? Okay, let's move on to the open forum. At this point, do we have anybody that's called in for the open forum? No?
Not on my end, nope.
Okay, with that, we'll move past the open forum. Next, I'd like to get a council member to please introduce yourself and give me a motion on the adopting the final agenda, please.
Councilmember Vogt.
There you go.
Councilmember Vogt. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, I just lost you.
I'll make a motion to approve the final agenda as written.
Okay, we've got that. May I have a second, please?
McMillan, second.
McMillan seconds. Any discussion, council members?
Well, I
Hearing
kind of
none.
missed,
Go ahead, Judy.
I missed what you said. You blanked out on me. So are we,
Yeah, we have, council member Vogt made a motion to adopt the final agenda. Council member McMillan seconded it, and then I asked for discussion. Any discussion or changes to the agenda, Judy?
I just wanted to, okay, the consent, is this the total agenda or the consent agenda? I always get confused on that one.
No, this is the meeting agenda. The consent agenda is next.
Oh, okay. No, I'm good.
Okay, so is there any, council members, any other comments? If not, we have a valid motion to approve the agenda. Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Council member Black?
Aye.
Thank you. Council member Gregory? Council member Gregory?
Oh, aye.
Thank you. Council member Vogt?
Aye.
Thank you. Council member McMillan?
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. Unanimous vote. We have adopted the agenda. With that, we'll now move to the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda, please, from a council member?
McMillan makes a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Thank you. Can I have a second to the motion, please?
Vogt seconds the motion.
Vote. Okay, we have a valid motion. Questions, or I'm sorry, anybody want to remove anything? Dana, staff, anything to be removed? Nothing from online from residents?
Judy, yeah.
Yeah, hang on a second, Judy. I'll get to you in a second.
We do
Okay.
have a call-in user, which I can unmute already.
Was that for the open forum?
They just logged in.
Okay, for the person that just logged in, do you have items that you'd like to remove from the consent agenda? If so, please state your name and address. No, nothing? Okay, if they have something, please let Alyssa know. With that, Judy, you said you had something on the consent agenda you wanted to discuss or pull?
Yes, I just wanted to discuss 6.3, the liquor license off sale.
Okay, any other item or just 6.3?
Just 6.3.
Okay, let's hold that 6.3 for a moment. I move that we amend the motion to exclude item 6.3. Can I get a second on that amendment?
McMillan seconds the amendment.
So we have a valid amendment. First, we have to vote on the amendment. Councilmember Black, do you approve yes or no for the amendment, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Gregory, yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Vogt?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember McMillan?
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. So we have a valid amendment. With that, any further discussion on this? If not, we're going to vote and approve the consent agenda minus item 6.3. Hearing no comments. Judy, yay or nay on approving the amended consent agenda?
Yay, aye, yes.
Yes, okay. Councilmember Gregory, go ahead.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Vogt?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember McMillan?
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. The amended consent agenda is hereby approved. With that, we're going to discuss item 6.3. Dana, is this for you?
I'm just standing for questions.
All right. Judy, you pulled this. Go ahead with
Yes.
your questions on 6.3.
Yes, I just wanted to bring this to the attention that we are approving an off-sale liquor license for the Noble Lion. And I was hoping that Dana could let everyone know how they can go about doing that if they want to do it in their restaurant. And afterwards, I also wanted to bring up the fact that today, Governor Walz also said he supported allowing bars and restaurants to sell takeaway beer and wine during the pandemic. And I think they may be voting on that this week. But if Dana could explain the process, I would appreciate it.
Okay. I think we limit our comments to what the city does, not what the governor does.
Okay.
Mayor, Councilmember Black, members of the council, I might actually pass the baton to Cindy, but I can at least get the conversation rolling. Our city clerk, Cindy Patnos, is also on the phone with us this evening, manages and coordinates all of the liquor licenses for the city. Our liquor licenses they run annually, and they are set here to start again on July 1. So liquor licenses go from July 1 of 2019 to June 30th of 2020. And so anybody who wants to, any establishment wants to apply for an off-sale liquor license, just work with Cindy to go through that application. You'll need to fill out the application, pay the fee, and pass a background check. And then upon a successful background check and council's approval, would be able to proceed with that. That would be good through June 30th, and your fee would be prorated for that. And anybody wanting to apply for next year would need to go through that same process again. And I'll defer to Cindy for any additional comments on that.
Cindy, any additional comments?
No, that is correct. And anybody can get the off sale with the local bars that we have. And yeah, so Dana said everything that is correct. And Mark is on the line if you have any specific questions for him.
All right, thank you. Judy, go ahead.
No, I didn't have any specific questions for him. Kudos to him for stepping up and getting it done. I did see that he had signed that petition, and I also signed it too. I just wanted to know how the other restaurants could get this going, because we're doing this now, and Dana was saying July. So is this going to be retroactive, or is it not going to be allowed until July?
This will be accepted as soon as the state approves it. So they all have the opportunity to do this. This is their annual, well, it would be from the time the state approves it until June 30th. And Mark from the Noble Line is aware of that. And
Oh,
I think,
just till June of this year?
correct.
Okay,
And
Okay,
he
so-
applied for this like the day after you guys met last month. Or,
Okay.
yeah, yep. So he put his application in. It just happened to fall the day after your council meeting.
okay. All right, I just wanted to make sure that we had steps in process for the other restaurants too, because, you know, whatever we can do to help everyone, I think we
Yeah.
should do.
So some of the other restaurants already do have off sale. There's just some that didn't want it. So it's up to them every year if they want to add the off sale to their license.
What's
Okay.
the cost? This is council member vote. What's the cost of the license?
It's $310 for the year.
And you have to be an established restaurant in this city to get it. That's true,
They
right?
have to, right, yep.
So we're talking specifically restaurants already in business.
Yes, and we also have just a standalone off sale liquor store.
Right, right.
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted it publicly out there so that everyone knew.
Dana, anything to add?
So Mayor, Councilmember Black, members of the council, the only final comment that I'll add is that we actually have examined how we are doing our process right now and have streamlined our process. So good things, right? Glass half full have come out of the discussion here and regarding the liquor licenses. And what we're doing, historically, what we've done is wait for the application, take it to council first. Once council gives their approval, then we send that application to an approval to the sheriff's office to conduct a background check. There's nothing that prevents us from doing those two things concurrently. And so the moment we receive an application, we're asking the sheriff to conduct the background check, which will expedite the process. Depending on when you submit that application, it'll save anywhere between a few days and up to 10 for that to happen. So we're expediting that process as much as we can.
Perfect, thank you. Judy, any final questions? Or is
No,
is everything covered?
No, that's
Okay,
great.
All right, thank you. Council, can I get a motion to approve item 6.3 from the consent agenda, please?
Mayor, this is Councilman Gregory. I make a motion to approve off-sale liquor license for Noble Lion through June 30th, 2020.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
Councilmember vote. I second that motion.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Councilmember Black?
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember vote?
Aye.
Councilmember McMillan?
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. Thank you, Council. Motion carries unanimously. 6.3 is approved. Okay, that completes the consent agenda. We'll now move on to the regular agenda. On this one, there is going to be a public hearing. But Dana, we're going to have staff and presentations first before we open the public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Yes, we do have a presentation. Tammy Opdahl, you might have heard her introduce herself earlier. From Northland Securities is on the line with the presentation tonight. My recommendation would be to let Tammy, and then Tricia is also on the line, our finance director, also on the line. She might have comments as well. But my recommendation would be to have the staff presentation and Tammy's presentation prior to opening the public hearing.
Perfect. With that, let's start with the staff presentation then. Who is giving this? Is this Tammy? Tammy, the floor is yours. Please name and position for the record.
Thank you, Mayor. This is Tammy Umdahl with Northland Securities, Northland Public Finance, serving as advisor to the city on the proposed issuance of the 2020 bonds. And I have about 12 slides to go through here to cover both. The purpose of the public hearing is twofold. for consideration of approval of a capital improvement plan and consideration of tax abatement. And the purpose of the presentation is being we're online is so everyone can have some background. So the city is considering the issuance of bonds, which is the reason that the public hearing is required. In Minnesota, for cities to issue debt, bonds, obligations, there must be specific statutory authority. And there are a few proposed items that the city is planning to finance that require statutory authority through this public hearing. One sec, Mayor. I'm going to probably go to this mode. Let's see there. So in total, there are 5 items, and one of these items is likely going to be removed before the city issues bonds in June. Approximately 2.3 million relates to refunding of EDA, stands for the Economic Development Authority, bonds that were issued to finance City Hall. I will talk about this more specifically, including the proposed savings, but the purpose of this is solely for interest savings. The next item is approximately 2.19 million for Wasserman Park. This relates to the second purpose of the public hearing. In order to issue bonds to finance park improvements, one of the authorities in Minnesota that is used is something called tax abatement bonds. It requires a public hearing, which is the purpose of this evening. 3.19 million for Downtown West. That item, as noted on the bottom of the slide, is likely to be removed, but at this point, staff is asked to include it for preliminary planning purposes. You are not authorizing the issuance of bonds related to that tonight. I only highlight it as it is an item that is being reviewed by staff. 2.17 million for Marsh Lake Road street improvements. There are no assessments, or if there will be assessments, they're not going to meet the 20% threshold of the total project cost. Therefore, the authority to issue bonds to finance the Marsh Lake Road improvement will be tax abatement bonds, also subject to the public hearing tonight. The last item relates to special assessments that the city is doing in order to assist a private business with fire suppression that occurred last year. This will reimburse for those costs, payable 100% by the special assessments. Bear with me, Mayor and Council. There, it's just a little bit of a delay when I press to the next page. So the refunding the EDA bonds for City Hall, for the viewing public, this is not to finance new improvements. This is to, in effect, refinance the bonds that were issued in 2014 because interest rates are such that the city could enjoy savings related to it. In order for the city to have authority to issue general obligation capital improvement bonds to refund the original bonds issued by the EDA, in effect for the city to acquire City Hall from the EDA, the city must hold the public hearing, which is being conducted this evening. To issue the CIP bonds, it required a notice to the public. There was a notice published in the newspaper for tonight's hearing. Following the public hearing, the city will have a resolution to consider. That resolution is must be approved by a 3/5 vote of its membership of the city council. The last point is an important one for the public. In order to issue CIP bonds, after the council approves the resolution, assuming that were to occur this evening, subject to a vote, there is a 30-day reverse referendum period. If 5% of the voters from the last general municipal election petitioned, then the city would need to take it to a referendum. In this case, it's unique in that the city is not proposing any new costs. It is simply to enjoy interest savings on the bonds that are already outstanding to refund them. The estimated gross savings is approximately $255,000 or $213 on present value. I would note that during the best of times, interest rates are always subject of estimates. During COVID-19, we are seeing more volatility than normal, which means rates from sometimes day to day, but certainly from week to week, have been more volatile than ever historically. So I would note that this savings may change. It could go up and it could go down. Later, I'm going to talk about the timing, that if the savings or the market were to change such that it no longer made financial sense for the city to issue these. I will hold those comments. Now, before I get to the calendar and the process, I want to talk about the tax abatement authority related to Wasserman Park and Marsh Lake Road improvements. So the city is proposing to undertake certain improvements that the authority to issue those type of improvements and the proposed funding sources, the most efficient and allowable authority is tax abatement bonds. The city has previously approved tax abatement bonds. The city did so in 2016 related to the refunding of debt for the community center and the burying of power lines. To issue tax abatement bonds requires a notice and a public hearing. And again, the public hearing is being held this evening. City must then adopt a resolution approving the tax abatement. After the resolution is adopted, you have the authority to proceed to issue the bonds. There is no reverse referendum period related to tax abatement authority. I recognize that that term tax abatement can be confusing. There is no abatement of taxes. It relates simply to the ability of the city council to levy a property tax, an abatement levy that is equivalent to the taxes that could be abated. As part of the process, the city would plan to certify a tax levy, an abatement levy, to pay the debt service on the proposed bonds to finance the Wasserman Park and Marsh Lake Road improvements. The abatement levy is spread over the city's entire general tax base, same as your general fund and the same as your debt service levies. Property within the tax abatement area, and there are specific parcels that were identified in the public hearing notice and included in your resolution. Those parcels pay the same rate for city taxes as property not within a tax abatement area. City staff went through and identified the parcels to be included within the tax abatement area, sufficient that the city taxes generated from those parcels in effect is equivalent to the estimated principal on the bonds to be issued. The last bullet point is an important one. There is no difference in individual property tax statements for property within or outside of the tax abatement area. It is the way that the state law is written as far as identifying those parcels. Because there is no difference in individual property tax statements for property within or outside of the tax abatement area, there is no specific notice given to those parcels proposed to be included in the tax abatement. The only notice is the notice of a public hearing and the opportunity to comment at the public hearing this evening. As I noted in my comments earlier, COVID-19, as it's impacting every other aspect of our lives, it is also impacting the municipal bond market. There's been significant volatility in the market, and what that means for Victoria, and I have spent a lot of time talking to Tricia and Dana about this, there will be a market to sell into. It's just more difficult in projecting those interest rates than it has been in the past. Big picture, interest rates have continued to be at historic lows. It's just that the movement and within that range of historic lows has been more significant than what we would see during normal economic conditions. With that said, in my comments on the savings for the refunding of the bonds issued to finance City Hall, June 29th is the date that we've identified that a decision on whether to include the refunding as part of the 2020 bond issuance is proposed to be made. And that decision would be based upon the interest rate savings that are projected at that time. There are significant savings that are estimated at this time, and our expectation is that would hold, but we don't know, which is why we've discussed having a date by which a decision would be made, and that then the calendar would proceed with or without that portion. Last slide, the calendar for the 2020 bond issuance. So this evening is the public hearing for the adoption of the CIP, which stands for Capital Improvement Plan, and that relates solely to the refunding of the bonds for City Hall, and then the tax abatement for street and park improvements. May 13th, if you were to pass the resolution this evening adopting the CIP plan, then the reverse referendum period would end on May 13th. May 15th is the date that the city and staff would finalize the project costs to be financed with the issuance of bond. June 8th is when the city council would adopt or propose to adopt the resolution setting the sale for the bonds. And it is proposed to be set as a competitive sale and bids would be taken. On June 29th, as I noted, that's the final date related to the refunding. And on July 13th is the date that bids would be taken for the sale of the bonds. And at your regular council meeting that evening, you would consider those bids and award the sale of the bonds. Mayor, those are my closing comments, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I want to be clear on the public hearings. Is it two separate public hearings or is it just one public hearing that we're holding?
It was noticed as one public hearing as prepared by the city's bond council. So one public hearing.
All right, thank you. Let me open it up. Councilmember Black, questions or comments?
I did have, wait.
Sorry to interrupt. Hold on a second. Dana, when do you want to do the public hearing? After the council discusses it? Okay, thank you. Judy, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify. So we're doing one bond for the park and the Marsh Lake Road?
Mayor, Councilmember Black, it would be one bond issuance with either, it would have these 5 different purposes or 4 or less purposes. So one bond issuance, and even though it's one bond issuance, the specific projects that are being financed, there's different authority that exists for those. And that's why the hearing this evening, and it relates to the first one that if you can see on the screen in front of you, the refunding of EDA bonds, Wasserman Park and Marsh Lake Road. To issue the CIP bonds for City Hall requires public hearing, and so does issuance of tax abatement bonds for Wasserman Park and Marsh Lake Road. I oftentimes refer to it as the mechanics in order to have that authority to issue. It's one decision as far as the city determining to issue bonds to finance these projects.
Okay. And we're not, and did I understand that the property taxes will not be affected by this?
Property taxes will be affected by this, but my comment related to that had to do with the tax abatement. There were specific parcels identified for being included in a tax abatement project area, and those parcels are listed in the resolution for the tax abatement. But I thought it was important to call out for an individual property owner, they may see their parcel number there and not understand. My comment there is it's really a decision by the city council to levy taxes that could spread over the city's entire tax base in order to pay for those park improvements at Marsh Lake Road, even though it is technically called a tax abatement levy. Yes, to answer your question, there are tax levies associated with the projects.
And when do we decide who gets levied and how much?
Mayor, Council, you will decide on adopting a levy that gets spread over the city's entire tax base. So it's not that, yes, it's not assigned to a specific parcel. I recognize that the complexity because you're identifying parcels, so it would be reasonable to assume those parcels were having some specific impact as a result of this. That is not the case. It is a decision by the city council to levy taxes to support projects that is spread over the entire city tax base.
Okay, that's what I needed to understand. Thank you.
Anything else, Judy?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Yep, Councilmember Gregory?
Tammy, just the mechanics of it, I'm kind of curious. When the CIP bonds are paid off for the city hall, does the EDA then lose control? And does once the bonds are issued, does the EDA then need to have a meeting to take control back?
Mayor, Council, so if the refunding were to go forward in this summer, the city will issue, in effect, new bonds to acquire City Hall from the EDA. Those new bonds and that proceeds will be available to the EDA then to call in the existing bonds that are outstanding. The bonds that were issued by the EDA could not include a general obligation pledge. So the interest rate was higher and also rates were higher at that period of time. So by approving this, yes, the EDA will no longer own City Hall and have a lease agreement with the city. The city will own City Hall and the lease agreement will terminate when the EDA bonds are refunded.
And the only reason the EDA took control was because they were lease revenue bonds?
Correct. The EDA has authority to issue lease revenue bonds, and that was the authority that the city used to finance the construction of City Hall and the library that is included in City Hall.
Okay. And what is the current rate that we hold on the lease revenue bonds?
The lease revenue bonds, I believe I put that in here. So the estimated average coupon rate on the new debt and estimated is 1.72% compared to 3.24% for the existing debt that's outstanding.
Okay. And lease revenue bonds are typically always higher than capital improvement bonds?
And there are just a few examples, even in Minnesota, that cities issued lease revenue bonds for various purposes, not general government purposes, non-essential purposes, where cities did default on the bonds. So leased revenue bonds carry a higher interest rate than bonds that are backed by the full faith and credit of the city.
And the reason we issued lease revenue was to avoid a reverse referendum.
I can't speak to that. I can state that a reverse referendum is not required with lease revenue. It is required with issuance of CIP bonds. And Dana and Tricia can confirm, but my recollection was that the city did receive a petition in 2014.
There was a valid petition, and the only way to avoid having a vote was to switch to lease revenue bonds. So that statement's accurate.
Yes.
Okay, no more questions. Thanks, Tammy.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilmember Vogt?
Just one question. The ability to spread this on the tax levy, the city still has the ability to, looking at the Wasserman Park piece, we could finance the debt servicing through franchise fees and reduce the burden of these bonds on the tax levy proportionately. Is that true?
Mayor, Councilmember Vogt, that's a great question. That is absolutely true. And at time of issuance, levies are certified in your resolutions. On an annual basis, the city has the ability to cancel all or a portion of that tax levy if other revenue is available, whether that be franchise fee or any other revenue that the city would designate and deposit into the debt service fund.
Exactly. So the city is not obligated to put the entire debt servicing for this bond in the tax levy. It can find other resources to pay down portions of the bond debt servicing and reduce the impact on the levy.
That is correct.
So you confirm that. That was my only question.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember McMillan?
Nothing from me, Mayor.
And I don't have any other questions. At this point, we move to the public hearing. So I'm now going to open the public hearing to any callers that are on the line. Alyssa, do we have anybody?
Mayor, we have no callers at this time.
All right, since there's a minute delay, let's hold tight to see if anybody calls in. In the meantime, I'll sing Yankee Doodle Dandy. No, maybe I won't. So,
This is Cindy Patnode, so you are opening the public hearing at this point. Is that correct?
yes, I did open the public hearing.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. All right, we'll give it just another 10, 15 seconds. Alyssa, is anybody dialed in or called in?
Still no callers, Mayor.
Still no callers, thank you. Okay, I should have started a stopwatch to make sure people had time. All right, if anybody calls in, let us know, but it doesn't seem like anybody's going to. So at this point, I'd like to get a council member. Can I have a motion, please, to close the public hearing?
This is McMillan. I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you. Can I get a second, please?
Councilmember Black, seconds.
Thank you. Before I ask for a roll call vote, one last time, Alyssa, has anybody called in?
Mayor, we have no callers.
Okay, we've had enough time, I believe, at this point. So roll call vote to close the public hearing. Councilmember Black?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Vogt?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember McMillan?
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. It's unanimous. The public hearing is now closed. At this point, if there's no other council comments or questions, can we get there's some resolutions here. I can't find them here. You got it? You ready? This is 7-1. It's not on my sheet.
Okay.
Oh, there it is. Got it. Yeah, all I have is the public hearing.
So we're at 7.2.
No, we're still on 7-1. Where's the motions for 7-1?
Is it adopt resolutions approving property tax abatement and
Yes.
approving?
I'm sorry, it is not 7.2. This is Cindy, sorry. It's 7.2 are the resolutions. It's not under 7.
Okay. Yep, thank you. So with that, you were right. Go ahead.
McMillan makes a motion to adopt resolutions approving property tax abatements and approving a capital improvement plan and giving preliminary approval to issuance of the capital improvement bond.
Thank you. Can I get a second on that, please?
Councilmember Vogt, I second the resolution. Second the amendment. Second.
Whatever it is.
Second the motion. We gotcha. So we have a valid motion. Council, I'll give you a moment. Anybody have any final questions or comments, discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Councilmember Black?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Vogt?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember McMillan?
Aye.
Mayor votes aye also. Thank you, by the way. That resolution is adopted unanimously. We have a second resolution. Can I ask for a motion, please? Don't be shy.
Those motions, they're.
Yep. I'm sorry. Yep, I'm correct. Sorry. So that is all taken care of then. So now that finishes 7172, doesn't it? The numbers are kind of confusing here. With that, let's move on to item number 7.3. Discuss Lake Wasserman Preserve interpretive signage. Is this Ann?
It is, Mayor. Thank you. Just a minute while I pull up presentation.
Yep, while you're
And
doing
I'm
it.
assuming, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say to Councilmember McMillan, yeah, I apologize. I had 7.1 and 7.2. I didn't think we were to 7.2 yet, so I got lost for a moment. Sorry about that. Ann, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, Council. Tonight, I'm excited to present the concept interpretive signage program for Lake Wasserman Preserve. Anna Brown from the Watershed District is also with us this evening, and I am sure we'll have some questions for her as well throughout the program. I intend to just kind of go through high-level interpretive sign program for Wasserman, and then talk a little bit about budgets and what the next steps are going to be in the process. The city staff and Watershed District, along with Annie Fernandez, landscape architects, have been working on a signage program for Lake Wasserman since January of this year. We wanted to be able to tell the story of the park and all of the elements within it. So we've been working hard to gather that input and then kind of come up with some interpretive resources and storylines around the park itself, and to give the users a unique look and provide them direction as we move through the park itself. So one of the key interpretive resources was obviously the landscape, and then the integrated design elements with the water, the oaks, the stream, all of the amenities that are on site, and then the storylines, combining the storylines of the city and the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District, and how the storylines impact what we are going to be proposing this evening. So the interpretive narrative and organization really relates around as you come into the park itself, and then within the hub, which is right by the shelter area, a three sign proposal that's got information on front and back, and then some signage elements and more sculpture, I would guess, elements as you move throughout the park, and detail some of those items that live within the park itself. So just to give you a idea of what the entrance sign would look like, we're looking at the monument sign. That would be right located on County Road 43 as you enter the park site. And we do, thanks to the technology, have some 3D imaging that gives you a little bit better idea of what that sign looks like. So the sign itself, as you can see, is the Core 10 steel sign, and that's carried throughout the park. And what the signage represents basically is the expansion of the Oak Savanna. And I guess I want to go back a little bit, one of the central theme, kind of the overriding theme of the park signage and interpretation is really what we do to the land, we do to the water. So that's kind of the overarching theme of the signage program. This gives you a night vision of the sign. It is a backlit sign that would provide some really nice imaging daytime and nighttime. So then we move into the interpretive hub where the three signs are proposed to be located, and we've put them into the three categories of where we're trying to provide people the information. So that first one, sign A, is Wasserman Lake Preserve, and the story that tells is really about the natural resources and habitat, and it shows the interpretive elements that are located throughout the park. It really gives you some site orientation and navigation, and really the restoration overview of the park. As we move into sign two, it really talks about the watershed, how this little watershed relates to the much larger watershed from the headwaters of the creek all the way to Lake Minnetonka and into actually the Mississippi River. sign 3 is what we would talk about as building the preserve. And building the preserve tells the story of the restoration of the preserve, the habitat, and water quality, and the restoration benefits that will become valuable to all the visitors within the park. At least that's our hope. So give you an idea of what those the interpretive hub signs would look like. And again, we don't have all of the, necessarily all the graphics or the wording down 100%, but this gives you a pretty good outline of what those signs would look like. And again, here's a kind of a 3D image of those signs within the park. Hub, again, it's the cortan steel wrapped around wood, again, carrying that element forward. Again, another 3D image of that. Again, here's sign 1, the Wasserman Lake Preserve sign. And they really have some nice graphics associated with them that really tell the story. So trying to utilize not so many words, but more graphics with it. This is the larger watershed district area, and then watershed all the way to the Mississippi. Historical, from what it used to look like in 1951 and carried forward to today, and how that landscape has changed. And then the sign on the restoration piece, restoring the preserve. Now I want to get into some of the internal elements of the park. The first being what we call the watershed walk. It really is that slope or the knoll area right within the central piece of the park. And the watershed walk really is going to tell the story of Minnehaha Creek and the 6 Mile story. And really the goal is to encourage access from the bottom of the hill here all the way to the top. And the proposal is to include 5 graphics that we would start at the tip of the top of the knoll with the elevations and work our way down all the way to the Mississippi River. So that's the watershed walk panel. The Prairie to Forest plan really tells the story of the return to the Oak Savanna, and it really focuses on the upland to lake relationship. So, and I'm hoping that you can see my mouse. This area to the south of the knoll is where the stream bank is located, and then the park entrance from the neighborhood trail entrance comes in here. So it's really telling the story, like I said, of the return of the Oak Savanna and the restoration of those legacy oaks. And this will give you an idea of the concept of what those look like. It provides both some space area for play, and it also talks about the interaction, encourages interaction from a use standpoint. The flow of water is an area right by the stream and really tells the story of stream restoration and the impact or how the land is impacted by the water. So the concept is to place some rock weir, or the rock weirs will be placed here with the cortan steel adjacent to that with a narrative about flow and stabilization. Right now, the creek really has been degraded with all over the past couple of years with the rainfall, and so the restoration of the creek is really a large part of this element. The legacy oak is right located next to the fire ring. The legacy oak really tells the story again of the return to the Oak Savanna and about a 300-year history related to all the oaks. This piece shows still one of the large, older standing oaks within the forest of the park. And so we're trying to showcase what those rings look like on an oak this large. And then moving into the wetland transition area, this really tells the story of wetland restoration and how the different types of wetlands interact with the water. So this is located by the Loose Parts Playground, which is away from the hub. And the rolling steel show an expression of transition from the upland to the wetland. And it's also an area of wildlife habitat and play area for people to use. Again, it's the Cortan steel cutouts as is carried through the rest of the park. The lake bounce plan really tells the story of how the water levels bounce over time. This is located out by the fishing pier on the island. And it really provides an opportunity and an experience for users to go explore and play in this area. So what the proposal is to put granite slabs stacked on land and water, and allows people to visually see the water level fluctuate next to this prairie lake. Another element is we talked a lot about reuse of some of the wood that's on site. And so these are the cordwood walls. They're located up closer to the shelter. And so the walls are constructed out of oak and ash with Cortan steel shroud covers. And this would provide an interpretive narrative regarding the reuse of materials. The next feature is the wave bench and exposed aggregate, and it's right by the shelter. So again, incorporating the movement of water within the site, and actually provides for a nice area for seating. And then the last element is the wave seat walls. This is proposed for the clearing area by the fire ring. And it's very similar in nature to the wave bench and the replication of water and how the water flows. And that, I believe, is the last slide in the concept. We'll go back and show a nice picture of the Wasserman Park. So where we're at right now, the Parks and Recreation Committee had an opportunity to review and provide feedback on the interpretive signage at its meeting in February. And there was a lot of good discussion and a lot of good ideas that were put forth. And we are now have incorporated those comments. And I know that the Minnehaha Creek Board and subcommittees have also had a chance to look at it and have provided comment on the signage proposal itself. So within the final budget for the park, there was a line item for signage, which I believe we had about $36,000 in there for signage. So currently, and based on feedback from the council tonight, the goal will be to move forward with design costs for the signage, which is about $18,500. And that would include design work by AFLA and also content development by Dogtooth Designs that the Watershed District has worked with over the years. And then move forward, hopefully, with bidding the sign project and one of the challenges of, excuse me, obviously is the total cost of the sign budget came in at about $107,000. And I know Anna Brown is here, and I've asked her to speak a little bit about the budget and also the discussions that the Minnehaha Creek Board has had regarding the signage. And with that, Anna, happy to turn it over to you.
Anna, go ahead.
Yes.
Anything you want to add?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. So our board reviewed this last Thursday, and we went
Anna,
into this.
Anna, sorry, just for the record, your name and your position.
Yes, this is Anna Brown. I'm a planner project manager with the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District.
Thank you.
Yes. So, yes, our board did review the signage proposal. As we kind of moved into design and planning around what interpretive signage out here might look like, it was with an understanding that the city's budgeted amount through the park design would cover more of a kind of standard signage plan. So something like the monument sign and maybe some more kind of traditional signage elements. So I wanted to bring this to our board with the understanding that the city's budget here was probably pretty fixed to see if there was interest in sort of fully implementing this program and having the Watershed District Gap Fund. So with the costs of design and then installation, the Watershed District Board is willing to sort of gap fund to make this concept a reality. What that would sort of look like process-wise is that they have approved the design contract with Ane Fernandez. So we are planning to move forward with design at district cost. And then we would be bringing back, as design advances, bringing back a specific proposal for which of these elements to bring forward into installation. So the sort of ultimate scope of this concept might still vary. You know, maybe it's the hub and 3 of these elements, the hub and 4 of these elements, or the hub and all 6 that you've seen here. But generally, the Watershed District at this point is comfortable moving forward, understanding that the city budget is fixed here and with a willingness to contribute funding to make this come together.
All right. Thank you, Anna. Let's start with Councilmember Black. Questions, comments?
Yes. So are you saying that the city would not have to go above the budget of 36,000?
Councilmember Black, yes. I mean, unless there was a desire to invest more in this program, but generally we're understanding that the city's budget is pretty fixed on this work.
Okay, and then I also had a question about the product that's being used, the Cortan. It's basically rusted metal, am I correct?
Councilmember Black, yeah, it's a specific treatment on steel, and the Cortan is being used in other elements of the park already. So it's a material that kind of gets recycled through the site. It also is designed to weather well. So in sort of a natural park setting like this, it tends to hold up relatively well.
I did a quick search and it said that it lasts about 25 years. Is that
Councilmember Black, I'm not sure what the lifespan is. Generally, when you hear something designed for 25 to 30 years, that means that it holds up relatively permanently.
And
Okay.
I would say, Councilmember Black too, that I mean your typical wood signs, they generally don't withstand longer than 10.
Okay.
So just with the rotting wood, especially in posts, where this would have generally up concrete underneath, so your rotting would not occur on it. So
Okay, so the wood that's in between that, it wouldn't rot?
it's
That's
off.
singed.
It's off. Oh, go ahead, Anna.
No, you go ahead, Ann.
Okay. With it being off the ground, usually those are treated materials, wood
Okay.
materials,
Okay.
which have a much longer lifespan than just regular wood.
Right. Okay. That was pretty much my question.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Councilmember Gregory? Yep, Councilmember Gregory?
There I am. Well, just a few comments. It's a very, very impressive sign package. These are huge. They're 8 feet tall on top of a 2-foot cement slab. This is a big investment for the watershed, and I appreciate their willingness to step up and put together this upgraded package. So that in and of itself is pretty exciting. And a lot of unique features in there. I really like the whole proposal. So the signs itself, these larger type signs, these are backlit, so they do have electricity running through them.
Councilmember Gregory, so the entry sign is the only one that is backlit, and that's where we'll have electricity brought in to that sign.
Okay.
The rest of them would not.
Okay. And then the content, the final content design, that's all going to be up for review as well.
Yes. So Ann and I will work together on developing the content for the panels that are incorporated into the hub. And then with a lot of these other kind of sculptural elements, they're still really in concept phase. So we're sort of looking for concurrence on the approach, and that we should carry them through design, but we'll get everything back in front of Park and Rec Council, our board. We'll have some more review kind of incorporated into the process.
Okay, and just last comment, I just want to thank Anna and the Watershed District. This is a huge investment and a big, it's just another example of the partnership that we're developing with the Watershed District. And I just continue to be impressed and look forward to things as they move forward. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Vogt?
Couple of things. First of all, the signage that we've seen in this presentation, is that the equivalent of the full spending of $107,000? Are we seeing the deluxe version?
Councilmember Vogt, the cost estimate is, or the budget estimate of $107,000 actually omits one of these features. However, we have decided with Ani Fernandez to advance all 6 of them through design, because right now with the bid market being what it is, we think there's a good chance that once we put it all out to bid, we could do the whole thing within that $107,000 cost estimate. So right now we are advancing more through design than the budget necessarily allows, but we think we might be able to make it up with the bid climate.
I would like to thank the Watershed District in advance for taking this on, for funding the gap here. Also, I would like to thank the Watershed District for their initiative and the fact that they came up with this concept. It's turning out to be great. I have one final question. I noticed there's no signs near the dock. Not that the dock is a highlight of the park, but isn't there going to be any signage on the dock at all?
Councilmember Vogt, the lake bounce concept is at the dock. So that's Yeah, so that's the last one with the rock stacks. And there is an opportunity to incorporate some of that core 10 paneling there as well. So
Okay.
it is there, and that also creates kind of a seating area. So it adds that additional amenity value.
Just one additional question, I just thought of it. Are we still entertaining the possibility that there could be some kayaking or canoeing in the area of the dock where we would have facilities to make it easy for people to use their kayaks and canoes? Is that true?
Councilmember, this is Ann. I know that we have talked in general terms of allowing kayaks to utilize the dock to access the park. We have not included any sort of structure that would make it, I guess I would make it easier to get in and out of the kayak at that site at this time.
Something to consider.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember McMillan?
Yeah, I would just echo the other council members. I like how this enriches the park experience. The only question I have is, in all of the signing, I don't see anything that says Victoria on it, and I'm not sure if that's customary to have, you know, here's where we are on these signs. Is there any thought about that?
Councilmember McMillan, we have talked about one of the sign panels, the third sort of hub panel, being themed around kind of the city of lakes and parks. And through that, telling the story of how this is sort of a unique asset in Victoria's prized park system, and also incorporating some of the stories around Wasserman Lake and the cleanup of Wasserman Lake. We did also get some feedback from the Park and Rec Committee about making sure that the city's logo is incorporated, whether that's at the entry sign or on the hub signs. So I think that's to be worked out as we kind of advance design, but it is certainly on our minds to make sure that there's strong messaging for the city and about the city, both in the hub and then incorporating that logo as well.
I would favor having the monument sign say, you know, Victoria or something like that. And then just to sort of brag on the great partnership between the city of Victoria and the watershed district, I think is also, it would be an important thing. Otherwise, I think these are handsome signs, beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree. I've got just a couple of quick questions. If you could jump back towards the back, the rock stacks by the dock. I want to make sure I understand what you're looking at. I think it said these are just stacks of granite that are randomly stacked up to form what's like literally places for people to sit down both in the water so they can get their knees in the water and then sit around on the tree. Is that literally as it's depicted here? That's just what it is, stacks of granite?
Mayor Funk, so they will have some structure to them. There will be a rod sort of in the middle so that they hold together well and they can't be knocked over and messed with, and they will be anchored into the ground. You can see in the picture on the left corner too that there is a little cutout of core 10, and so that can have some additional messaging. The idea is, you know, as we all have experienced, Wasserman Lake levels fluctuate quite a bit over time, and that these stacks will both serve as feeding areas and kind of things you can climb on a little bit, but also that they will start to actually register that lake level fluctuation over time. So in a dry year, they might all be out of the water, in a wet year, you might see them creeping up further on the rock stack. So the idea is to sort of illustrate that natural lake level fluctuation while also providing that seeding and kind of exploratory value. That oak tree also is one of the really large legacy oaks on site, so it will be neat to kind of bring people to that tree.
Yeah, super. Thank you. That helps. Can you go the cement benches? I don't know I don't know if it was, yeah, the wave. Yeah. These are up there. I wasn't quite sure when I looked at this or when you first talked about it. These aren't down in the water. These are up on the land, just decorative benches for people to sit and enjoy the scenery.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And the cordwood wall, the wave bench, and then the wave walls are all already being incorporated into the site. So these are already part of the construction package. I think what this illustrates is that some of these interpretive elements are sort of already inherent in the design, and we can incorporate some messaging about that into our hub signs, and also just view this whole interpretive plan as a holistic package that helps to highlight that dynamic between the restoration and the water resource and the park itself.
Got it. So I'm really impressed by this whole package, and I'd like to echo Councilmember McMillan's thoughts. I really do think that we want to at least annotate somewhere the partnership between the city and the watershed, because this really is a joint effort across the board. So consider that as far as when this goes forward, because this is such a gem to the city. This is our first citywide park. And if we can put this kind of signage out there, the enhanced version, if you will, I just think adds a lot of value, and I think it's well worth it, especially since the watershed is willing to fill the funding gap, if you will, from the original budget from the council. So appreciate the time. I really I look forward to seeing the next step in the design process. And with that, council, any final comments or questions? Hearing none. Dana, Ann, that's all you needed is just some discussion by the council and a little bit of feedback. Is there anything else that you needed from the council?
Nothing at this time, Mayor. And yes, thank you for the comments, and we will take those responses and implement best we can into the final sign design.
All right, super. Dana, anything else?
Nothing.
All right, Ann and Anna, great job, guys. It really looks good. I really like that. I can hardly wait till we get to see this thing. So
great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
you both.
Thank you.
With that, let's move on to the roundtable. I've got one quick item. Quite frankly, the situation with the coronavirus has affected us all, and we're continuing to navigate through the mitigation efforts with the continued uncertainty. We understand that some of our residents may be experiencing varying degrees of financial hardship during this time. Because of this, I wanted everyone to be reminded that our city staff are here to help you. If you're having a hard time paying your bills, our staff will work with you to come up with a payment plan. Please contact City Hall and ask to speak to our finance department if you have any questions or you'd like to discuss something. And I think I'd like to add in some of the discussions I've been having with Dana. The city traditionally has never cut off service. We're always working with our residents, and in today's unique environment with the virus, if anybody is having any issues, please reach out to us, and we'd be happy to work with you. So, council, without objection, I believe all of us will support that. Deb nodded her head yes. Councilmember Black, any objections?
No, I absolutely agree.
Thank you. Councilmember Gregory, any objections?
No objections.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Vogt, any objections?
No objections.
All right, thank you. With that, let's move on to Reports, first, Bob, I know you spoke a lot tonight, Bob, but do you have any reports to add?
Well, yeah, Mayor, I don't want to belabor my comments here tonight, but no, I just have one quick comment to offer about, you had a good discussion about the signage at Wasserman Park. And I haven't had a chance to say to you as a council that, as I think the council is fully aware, that the transaction underlying the park has closed now. And it will come as no surprise to anybody that the way we got to that transaction was a little bit of a windy road, and at times was a little bit complicated. And I just want to say that the closing itself, because of the number of documents involved and because it involved a relatively large piece of property with several agreements governing it, the closing itself was fairly complicated. And I guess I just want to take the opportunity to congratulate Ann and also Anna on the other side of the transaction. They neither had to actually, I think, be part of the closing on a minute-by-minute basis, but they were certainly the steady hands that helped get us there through the closing. And I had a colleague that dealt with the closing with the attorneys for the district, and it was helpful to have them as point people on getting that closing done. So I just want to congratulate the staff for having gotten that done. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Bob. Great job to Ann and Anna. This is, they've done a terrific job on this project. So Dana, any reports? Councilmember Black?
Not at this time, thank you.
Yep. Councilmember Gregory?
No report.
Councilmember Vogt?
No report.
Councilmember McMillan?
Nothing from me.
I've got two just quick comments. I was contacted just a couple of days ago. Dana and I hopefully have some good information to share. As soon as we've got it confirmed, we'll let you know. And that basically, there's a local manufacturer that manufactures the face shields for first responders. And they reached out to me and they'd like to donate 1,000 masks to our fire department. So we're in the process of contacting them, and I'll be happy to identify them once we've got everything confirmed. So that was just really great news that the city received. And then secondly, during the time of the virus, the public works staff have been hard at work cleaning up the old public works site. I went down there just the other day, and I would encourage council members, if you haven't had the opportunity, take a look. During this time with the virus, the transformation has been pretty significant. There's still work to be done. There's still cold storage. There's still, we're not done. But boy, public works staff have done a tremendous job in cleaning up the public works. With the idea being that we can maybe get some class 5 in there and maybe start using that as extended parking very soon and with little to no cost. So, well, there is some cost, time and some class 5, but otherwise, if you haven't seen that and you get a chance, take a look. So that's all I have to add. With that, can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
Judy Black, I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Can I get a second, please?
Councilmember Vogt, I second the motion to adjourn.
Okay, we'll give it to Councilmember Vogt. He gets the second. The roll call vote, assuming no discussion, hearing none, roll call vote. Councilmember Black?
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Vogt?
Aye.
Councilmember McMillan?
Aye.
McMillan, sorry.